Hello, everyone, and welcome to your collective reading. And in this reading, I'm going to talk about what we have here in early 2023 with all of the planets going direct, stationing direct, and moving direct for a few months here in early 2023. And I want to talk about Jupiter's position in Aries. And I just kind of want to draw a picture of this being a time for new beginnings and pushing forward, looking forward, being external, taking steps forward, not looking back. Right. This is the case I'm going to make with these plants that we have here. So, um, I've got a few charts here for each new moon. Now, this is chart is for midnight on January 21st, which we have a new moon on this day. In this chart, it's still some hours away, half a day or so, or a day, maybe 12 hours away from the new moon there. But you can glean enough from this chart. You can see the planet Jupiter here in the sign of Aries, 4 degrees, tracking back over where it was in 2022. And it's going to soon here, within the next month or two, it's going to start moving very quickly forward in the sign of Aries. And it's going to be done with Aries completely by May. So it's going to move very, very fast through the sign of Aries. Now, because it's the sign of Aries and it's a fire sign, Jupiter does well in there. That's fine. Aries energy with Jupiter moving quickly through it can make great use of this Jupiterian energy of expansion and growth. And Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It's correlated with spring, with March, late March through late April. So think about that time of year: new beginnings, growth. The seedlings busting out of the ground, kind of thing, right? And so when you have Jupiter in there, the planet of expansion, growth, good luck, good fortune, excitement, optimism, enthusiasm, right? Going through the sign of Aries at breakneck speed, with all the other planets going forward around it as well, this really sets up for a time to make great strides, to bet on yourself, to take action, to thrive on enthusiasm, okay? And to use that enthusiasm to expand, to grow, to travel, to put yourself in new and interesting situations, and to see what happens. Okay. To bet on yourself, right? This is good. Now, obviously, everybody's chart is different and is going to affect people in different ways. Some people it's going to really be a boost, and others it's not. There's all kinds of details involved. But collectively, in general, I think for most people in most ways, this is going to be a good energy. And with all the planets going direct, it's certainly speaking to everybody collectively as we're all moving forward. We're not looking back. We are going to be at our optimal by looking forward, taking steps forward, not looking back, taking action, right? And this is not a time to be reflective here over the next few months. We've had that time. We're coming out of that time. And right around, I'm making this video on the 11th. We're getting ready to have Mars go direct here within a day. And on the 22nd of January, we're going to have Uranus go direct. That'll be the last of the retrograde planets. And then after that point, January 22nd, all planets will be going direct. Now, when planets go direct, it's like they don't just go direct and everything's, hit the gas, punch it full, everything forward. Just like when they go retrograde, it builds, right? It's going to take a little time for all the planets to be moving at breakneck speed. But I will say at the end of January, we are going to start feeling, if we haven't already started feeling the pull to kind of get going and to get things moving, we're probably already experiencing a little more traction. And that's going to continue. And we're going to start moving very quickly here once we get into late January. And then into February and March, things are really going to pick up the speed. So I've got other charts we can look at for that. But just know that's sort of what we're building toward. Um, and I think it's going to, maybe peak at that new moon in 0 degrees Aries and on March 21st, I believe it is. I do believe we're going to hit kind of a peak of, forward movement, new beginnings, action. There's just this real premium on Aries energy for the next few months, and this. Think of this as like super spring, right? But it's starting a little early. It's starting in late January and into February, and then into March. Um, so yeah, let's move on to the next chart. We could look at the new moon and do all the aspects and all that kind of stuff, but I want to keep this bird's eye view. I don't want to get all day to day about it. So we'll move on to the next chart here. So as you can see, but this chart, like in the last chart we had, if we look at Mars, here, we can see Mars in the sign of Gemini. It's at 8 degrees up here, and in this chart it's moved to 16 degrees. So once we get into late February 21st, once we get to the second new moon, Mars is already starting to gain speed. It's moved up 8 degrees. I mean, for Mars to move 8 degrees in a month, that's pretty slow, but you're coming out of a retrograde. It takes some time for it to get cranking, right? For it to get really going again. So it's starting to get moving here. But once we get into late February, it is starting to go direct. It's going forward. You got Uranus going forward. You got all the planets going forward. Jupiter is already at 10 degrees of Aries, so it's out of shadow, and it's starting to not look back and move forward. So once we get into that next new moon, which is going to be in good aspect by sign to I'm sorry, it's going to be in a square aspect to Mars, but nonetheless it'll be it'll be in play with Mars there. So we've got planets moving forward at this time. We can see Mars here getting going. Mars has been retrograde since October 27th. And it's going to go direct right here, right around January 12th. And that has been, that's been a timeout, right? When Mars goes retrograde, Mars is the planet of action, of will, of pushing forward, rules physical energy, adrenals, adrenaline. And so when Mars goes retrograde, if we try to take action and will ourselves forward and make things happen and use that Mars energy to push, it's like pushing a boulder up a hill. It's diminishing returns. It's very difficult, and we can be stopped right in our tracks, right? It's a much better time to strategize, especially in a sign like Gemini. So since late October, it's kind of been it's been hard to get traction to move things forward, but it's been a great time to strategize. Couple that with here in January, we've had, and since Christmas really, we've had Mercury retrograde in the sign of Capricorn, and we've been really looking at it's been a doozy, a retrograde doozy. And I say this on January 11th here, and of course this morning we had the issues with the FAA and the flights being grounded and all the chaos around that. So you want to talk about two planets that are getting ready to move direct, so which means their energy is very strong, because whenever a planet is getting ready to station retrograde or station direct, and both Mars and Mercury are getting ready to station direct, their energy is on high. They're close, their vicinity is close to the Earth, so it creates an excess of that energy that's can be unproductive, right? It can be problematic, especially so we look at what happened with the FAA. It was a technological glitch. We don't know exactly what it is exactly at this point. A lot of speculation, but we know it has something to do with something technological related. So there you go with Mercury, and then the grounding, the halting of movement, of travel, of plans, of making things happen. There's your Mars. And so the good news is once we get into February, that's distant past, right? Things are moving forward. Things are happening. That doesn't mean that everything's great. It doesn't mean that everything is perfect. It means that there's going to be less. It's not that there may be potholes. We're going to run right over them, right? They're not going to give us a flat tire, right? So think of it that way. It's not that all the problems go away, but the forward movement will be there. And it's a great time to be external. It's a great time to push yourself out into the world and to, try and make things happen and to really make hay while the sun is out. This isn't the time to hide away. This isn't a time for reflection. We've had that. And so when I say this isn't the time, I mean after, January 22nd, they're forward with this next new moon. That would be the time to really start to make your push. And as we get forward into February and into March, it's going to build. So it may not start off at breakneck speed, but it will gain momentum. And I do think we're going to peak right around March. And so I'll pull up that chart. Okay, so here we are. And in this chart, we have the sun right there at the beginning of Aries, and within, we're about to have we will, in this chart, this is March 21st at midnight, so later in the day, we're going to have the moon conjunct the sun, and so that'll be a new moon in Aries right there at the beginning of Aries. So 0 degrees Aries is the very beginning of the zodiac. It's the beginning of spring. It's like the beginning. It's in Western astrology, we start the zodiac at that equinox, right there, first day of spring, 0 degrees Aries, boom, like that's the beginning. That's the most infantile part of the year, right? The new beginning. It's fresh, it's brand new. So to have a new moon there is significant in and of itself, but to also have Jupiter in the sign of Aries, right in the middle of Aries, going forward, gaining speed, right? Not in shadow. With that new moon, this is like super spring. This is like spring busting out, right? Just go for it, right? Don't look back. There are no planets retrograde. Make it happen. And so, again, it doesn't mean that everything's perfect, and it doesn't mean that there aren't going to be certain planetary configurations to your natal chart that kind of negate some of what I'm saying. But as a collective, this is forward movement. This is push. Things are going to be happening. Things are going to be unfolding very, very quickly. And again, if you want to look at your personal chart, I do that. Reach out to me and we can talk. We can make a video for you. So just understand, we are entering a period of forward movement, of action, of Aries is cardinal fire, right? And so with this new moon, it's all systems go, right? It is. We're going to be coming up on a Mercury retrograde in April, which is going to be in late April. Let me give you an exact date on that. So, yeah, because, right after this new moon, once we get into April, things are still moving forward with Jupiter being in Aries, coming to the end of Aries, but it's going to be kind of wrapping up this burst, right? And so I think it's really going to peak right around this new moon. Once we get to April, right around April 21st, so exactly a month from this new moon, we're going to have Mercury retrograde again, and so that's going to be that's going to slow things down a bit. It's just going to be some, the usual hiccups and, some things to contend with there. So, for the most part, the rest of the planets will still be moving forward, and, a lot of things are going to be still in play of what I'm talking about. But I think, especially that first week of the new moon, okay, in March 21st, let's just say the end of March, from March 21st onward, is just going to be a really great time to start something new and to just trust in that time period that it can have success. Okay, to bet on yourself, to make things happen, to take a chance, to just to bet on yourself. Okay, this is the time for it. Okay, because once we get into April, Mercury is going to move into shadow, and we we start to get some disruptions again. Nothing major. Mercury retrograde. It happens. Half the year we're either in Mercury retrograde or in Mercury retrograde shadow. So it takes up a good portion of the year. Mercury retrogrades are not the end of the world, but they are annoying. And so, um, I'll just finish this video up by saying we're entering a time here in late January where we're really going to be able to get some traction, and I think that's going to peak right there in that the last 10 days of March after that new moon. I think that's when it's really going to peak. That's when things are going to be really moving fast and things can really happen. I would just encourage everybody to be out there, to be external, to be looking forward, not looking back. There'll be other times for reflection. There'll be other times for meditation. I mean, not discouraging people from doing meditation. You know what I mean? This is the time to be external, to be out there, to be in the world, to be participating. Okay? So go out there and make it happen. So I just wanted to put this out here. This is I think this is a really positive message. It's because we got Jupiter here moving at breakneck speed, and especially once we get into February and March, and it's a great time for optimism and to seeing what's possible, seeing what you're capable of. So yeah, get out there and make it happen. Okay. Hope this was helpful, and goodbye.